All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about a machine that truly shaped the course of World War II. This is the incredible story of the Enigma. So, picture this. It's World War II. The Axis powers, they're seriously outnumbered. Their only path to victory, their whole strategy, hangs on one single thing: the element of surprise. And that, of course, created this desperate, urgent need for secret communication. Now, the gold standard back then, the absolute best, was something called the one-time pad cipher. It's genuinely unbreakable. But here's the catch. It's a nightmare to use for a massive army, just totally impractical. So the new challenge, the new goal, was to build a machine that could mimic that perfect security. The core idea was actually pretty simple. What if you could build two identical machines? If the sender and the receiver set their machines to the exact same starting position, the key, as they called it, then those machines would spit out the same scrambled sequence. And just like that, you've got a secret channel. All right, so let's get into the machine itself. Enter the Enigma. This thing was an electromechanical marvel, a rotor machine designed to be the ultimate, unbreakable solution to this very problem. So how did it work? Well, at its heart was this ingenious system of rotors. The best way to think about it is like a car's odometer. You know how the numbers click forward? Every single time you pressed a key on the Enigma, one of the rotors would click forward, changing the entire electrical path. That meant you got a brand new, completely different substitution cipher for every single letter. And get this, with just 3 of those rotors, each with 26 positions for the alphabet, the machine could crank out a sequence of over 17,000 unique shifts before the pattern even began to repeat. I mean, think about that. That's kind of like having a password that's thousands and thousands of characters long before it loops. But the Germans didn't stop there. This is where you see them just layering on the complexity. It wasn't just that the rotors turned. Oh no, they designed it so you could physically pull the rotors out and swap their order, a brilliant move that made the whole system exponentially harder to crack. And that one simple change, letting the operators swap the rotors around, it made the number of possible starting keys explode. We're not talking about a small jump. It went from about 17,000 to well over 100,000. That's a massive leap in complexity from one single feature. And, as the war dragged on, they kept upgrading it. They added more rotors, a plugboard, and the number of possible settings just became astronomical. We're talking 150 times quintillion. That's 150 followed by 18 zeros. It's an insane number. So you can see why the Germans felt so confident, right? They thought, hey, even if the Allies get their hands on one of our machines, so what? It's useless. They could never, ever test all those settings. So they thought their machine was perfect, unbreakable. But here's the twist in the story. It had 2 fatal flaws. 2 hidden weaknesses that the codebreakers were about to exploit. A supposedly perfect machine about to be brought down by some very human assumptions. Okay, so what were these flaws? Well, the first one was pure human error. Think about it. You're a tired operator, you've been on duty for hours. Are you going to pick a truly random starting position? No way. You're going to pick something easy to remember, like your girlfriend's initials or just AAA. Not very random. The second flaw was actually built into the machine's design. A letter could never be encrypted as itself. So A could become B or Z, but it could never, ever become A. They probably thought this made it stronger, but it was about to become their Achilles heel. And it was these 2 flaws, one human, one mechanical, that basically left the door wide open for the Allied codebreakers over at Bletchley Park. This was their chance, and they built an incredible machine to walk right through that door, the Bombe. So, to crack the code for any given day, the codebreakers needed a way in, a foothold, and they found one. They realized that German messages were, well, they were kind of predictable. They always contained common words, like Wetter, which is German for weather, especially in weather reports. They called these little snippets of predictable text cribs. Now, it's super important to understand this. The Bombe was not a brute force machine. It wasn't just trying every single one of those 150 quintillion settings. That would be impossible. No, it was a logic machine. It was much, much smarter. It would take a guessed crib, line it up with the encrypted message, and then it would race through the rotor settings looking for a single thing, a contradiction. If a setting ever produced a letter encrypting to itself, which they knew the Enigma couldn't do, bam, the Bombe knew that entire setting was wrong and it moved on. It wasn't looking for the right answer, it was eliminating all the wrong ones. And the result of this unbelievable ingenuity? It was a game changer, a massive, war-winning strategic advantage. Suddenly, the Allies could read German commands, sometimes within hours of them being sent. That whole German strategy of surprise attacks? Gone, out the window. They were, for all intents and purposes, reading the enemy's mail in almost real time. So, when you step back and look at this whole incredible story, this epic battle of wits between codemakers and codebreakers, what's the big lesson here? What does the failure of this perfect machine really teach us? You know, what's just wild is how simple the fixes would have been. I mean, think about it. If the operators had just used a pair of dice to pick truly random starting positions, and if the machine's designers had allowed a letter to be encrypted to itself, the Bombe would have been completely useless. Its entire logical trick would have vanished. The codebreakers would have been stuck, staring at that impossible number of keys with no way to check them. And that leaves us with a really powerful idea, one that's just as true today as it was back then. It's about the connection between our technology and our own human nature. You can build the most complex, unbreakable system in the world, but it's often only as strong as the person using it, or the simple, predictable mistakes they might make. A fantastic lesson from history. Thanks for diving into this with me.